Alright, RuneScapers and RuneScapees, what's going on? Welcome back to Should You Buy It, the video series where I go over niche or updated equipment, stuff that not everyone uses, and I give you that dirt nasty low item analysis so that you know on your own if you want to buy it or not. And on today's episode, we're talking about the Dinhs Bulwark. So I actually did want to talk about this item for quite a while now, but I knew this update was coming, so I needed to wait for it to happen. So here we are, and we can talk about all the new stuff. There's actually a lot to go over in this one, so it might be a little bit longer. But maybe you guys like that. Maybe you guys like things that are longer. Hey, whatever, that's fine. Big things are cool. I'm not gonna lie, this thing actually had a big spike in the market the other day. I think it was like 17 mil, which is kind of crazy. But we're not Queen Saraha, we're not Scapenomics, we're not talking about the market on this channel. We're just talking about the item and what it actually does. So this will be episode 9 in the series. I think we're good to start it right now. Alright, so what does the Dinhs Bulwark actually do? Well, you may notice that it's a giant fuck-off shield, so there's actually 2 passive effects that go with that. There's an offensive one when you're on pummel. You'll actually get a strength bonus based on your average defense bonus of the rest of your gear combined. Which I think just thematically is kind of cool because it really plays into you being a tank and still being able to do damage, but not quite as much as being a straight DPSer. Of course, if you go into the block attack style, you can't attack at all actually, you don't get to hit anything. But any damage you take outside of PvP is reduced by 20%. Beyond those 2 passive effects, it doesn't let you cast any combat magic spells. So you can't just be running around with this thing and catching freezes on people, because that wouldn't make sense. On top of that though, it also comes with a special attack. As it shows, you'll hit everyone in a 10x10 square, with a little bit of extra accuracy. A little side note here on the special attack though. I've heard reports that the special attack is busted right now. I'm not sure if it's still currently in the game or if they're going to add it back. But on the wiki, it states that the target's highest offensive stat will also be reduced by 5% on a successful hit. I think the issue was it was going off twice or it wasn't reducing the correct stats. I haven't really been able to find a definitive answer on that. So right now the special attack might change or maybe it's working as intended. Hard to say. Anyone feel free to let me know or let all of us know down below. And of course if I come across what the answer is to that, I'll pin it in the update comment like I always do. So that's basically the gist of the weapon, what it actually does. So whenever this item was updated, it went through a lot of changes, and a lot of people just considered it to be a nerf for the most part. But really the 2 offensive changes to it at the top are the things that made it actually decent in a lot of different areas, despite it not being as tanky as before. Of course, I'm sure a bunch of you guys already know this stuff, you just want to see where it's actually used at now that the changes went through. So let's do it, let's start talking about it. I guess we'll start with going over the things it was already good at before the update happened. And I think nothing is more prevalent in people's minds than just general tankiness in the wilderness. If you were doing anything in the wilderness, if you just swapped on some black D-hide and put on the shield, you could just run. You just run for hours and be completely fine most of the time from people. And it's still going to hold up, this is still going to be the most tanky item that you could put on, despite it defensively being nerfed. People would also use the Dinhs Bulwark for tagging Dust Devils and Necreals whenever you're bursting on a task. I personally would just throw some iron knives at each individual monster, but if you spec'd with it, you could hit all the monsters within a 10x10, or it used to be 13x13 radius. You can still do that, it's just a little bit shorter of a range now. Really, those were the 2 main things people would ever use it for. That's why it was like 4 mil or 2 mil, whatever it was, because no one would use it for anything. I guess you could throw in, if you're doing Barbarian Assault and you're not attacking, if you just want the best defense gear, you could throw on a Bulwark or something like that. Yeah, I'll just say that. Anytime you want max defense for whatever, this is a pick. This is your pick for your weapon. Typically. Hold up, I actually forgot one of the previous reasons you would use it before the update. Is for ghost skipping at Cerberus, which I won't get into the specifics, but it was just nice for tanking a lot of hits while you're waiting for time to go by. But I do have a whole Cerberus guide if you wanted to look at that. But moving on to the new stuff. Ooh, this is where it gets juicy, boys. As it turns out, this is actually a decent weapon to train melee, to train attack specifically with melee, which is it's just hilarious when you think about it. I saw someone on Reddit make a post about it. They got over like 100,000 XP an hour in attack using this thing. I did a very unoptimized, just super AFK training down at some Dagonoths in the Catacombs of Kourend. I was getting 88k an hour XP. Of course, that's not the best XP you can get with it. That was just a small, as I said, unoptimized test. Thinking on it, if you were to go into Nightmare Zone, you had 2 players in there, one of them just AFK. You use Death Charge and get every power surge you see as often as you can while you're in there. I'd imagine that's the best XP you can get with it. It might actually rival Darok's. I'm not 100% on that. I didn't test it. I know a lot of people don't have access to 2 accounts to just go sit in Nightmare Zone for hours. But I think it might be a super viable way to train melee. Well, attack, like I said specifically, because that's all it gives you XP for. Oh, and by the way, I've just been using max defense gear basically, as much defense as I can get. In certain scenarios, it might be better to wear offensive jewelry in certain slots. I mean, really, that's just something you have to play around with in the DPS calculator if you want to know specifically what you should wear. I mean, like I said again, you got to optimize it. So I'll leave that link down below if you want to use it for whatever specific activity you're thinking about. Beyond that, I think a lot of people initially thought of tanking at God Wars Dungeon for this, and they're 100% right on that. Specifically, if you're doing Creel or Bandos, it's really good there, as a tank when you're in a group. So with this one, I did want to do a little calculation. So if I ever was tanking down there, this was typically what I would bring. I mean, really the only switch is the Bulwark over the Abyssal Tentacle and the Dragonfire Shield. So with this example, I think the slight DPS dip is definitely worth the increased defense from the armor. I mean, really when you're making any sort of DPS comparison, the shield is always going to be less than, your traditional gear. It's just in these certain scenarios where you will be taking a ton of damage or you're tanking for the group, then it's going to be worth it, in my opinion. Of course, this means you need the best defense gear possible, and Justiciar is almost a requirement for that, but it will be an option for some of you guys. As I was thinking about other bosses you could potentially use this at, it came to my mind that you don't have to use it efficiently at a boss. It's never going to be the most efficient option, but what it can do is give out competitive DPS while making it easier to learn the fight. If you mess up on mechanics, you won't take as much damage, you can stay longer, see how the fight goes. So I feel like this will be a great learning tool for hard bosses or stuff you're not super familiar with. If you're doing Nightmare, potentially some Cerberus, Synacris even, I mean pretty much any boss you can melee, you could use this gear at as a crutch to help you learn. And it'll get even better if you combine it with the Amulet of Blood Fury. I can definitely see some people benefiting from that. So I did want to comment again on the special attack, even though I'm not 100% sure if it's working or not. I believe I was reading something on Reddit, or someone mentioned to me that you can spec Corp with the weapon, and you can not use as many Arclight charges if you're trying to solo him, because you dump a ton of specs into him when you're trying to solo. Although this is something I'm a little confused on, because I thought this only reduces offensive stats. I thought you want to reduce his defensive stats when you're doing that. I mean, again, if you have any insight on this, definitely let me know, because I want to know, and I can't find anything conclusive on it. So crazily enough, I've actually seen people use it at Inferno. I'm sure that's what a lot of people have seen, actually. That might be why the price spikes so much. This isn't meta. It's a bit of a gamble if they hit you or not, back to back to back, whatever. You can just act as a handicap or maybe a more chill way to do it if you're super experienced, Since this can be used in the Inferno, you could also use it in the fight caves then, the same general purpose. Maybe you're doing some combat achievements, you're doing the melee fight caves. I can see certain combat achievements definitely benefiting from this. In fact, there's a little bit of a bug. I mean, maybe it's not a bug, maybe it's something they're never going to patch. So what happens is the shield's animation will play if you fail to block an incoming attack. So, it can let you know if you need to heal ahead of time before it actually hits you. It gives you more reaction time, or you can set up a tick eat easier. But most likely that's going to be fixed. I don't think that's intended. Just sounds a little bit too beneficial to me. So is the Dinhs Bulwark worth buying right now after all the changes? For me, it's definitely something I'll always keep in the bank. I can see myself actually using it from time to time and not wanting to sell it and get it back and blah blah blah. I think specifically if you're tanking a lot of God Wars Dungeon, you have a consistent group for it, I think it's really nice down there. I also think it's really good for learning a new hard boss, like I said. Maybe you're trying to solo God Wars Dungeon, just get used to the flicking, the positioning of stuff when you want to use melee. I'll probably personally use it whenever I'm at Nightmare, too, whenever I eventually learn how to do that on my own. It's just a more chill way to experience bossing and maybe help ease you into some of the mechanics. If you're still here, I'll humbly ask, do you like the video? Maybe subscribe if you're new. It means a lot to me, helps small channels out a lot. I do have some channel news for anyone that's interested though. First off, this week, Group Iron Man came out, so I'm sure this video got destroyed by the algorithm. But I am playing with my girlfriend. I think I want to do a little bit of a series with her, see how it goes, see if she likes the game. But don't worry, I'll weave it in between the normal stuff I upload. We're not going straight to a series channel here. Secondly, I've actually accepted my first sponsorship. We're gonna have a sponsor for the channel, which is awesome. It's for Opera GX. I'm sure you guys have heard of it before. You know, this wasn't a decision I made lightly. This will be the first time I actually do something like this. You know, I just want to say 100% of the proceeds will be going towards the channel, you know, video expenses, subscriptions, you know, things of that nature. But I'm super excited. It's actually kind of crazy that small channels like this can actually get sponsorships. That'll do it though. That's my little presentation and my channel news. So, love you guys. Feel free to ask questions if you have any. I'm always down to talk about RuneScape. You all better have a wonderful fucking day.